Hi guys, this is your Friday shared reading, okay? So this is one that we're just like what I would do is I would have done this as a Friday assessment based on what we've been studying in our classroom, okay? So this is on the author's point of view, okay? So remember in school we've learned about an author's point of view can be somebody telling the story or an author's attitude or opinion about how they feel about a certain topic. So we're going to read about the Titanic, okay? And if you read, okay, it says, so go ahead and get this. I'm going to read this to you, okay? It says in an informational text, the author shares his or her point of view. The point of view is also known as the author's personal attitude, feelings, or opinion on the subject. When you read, I want you, so when I'm reading to you or when you read by yourself, okay, I want you to ask yourself, what point is the author trying to make? What does he or she believe about this topic that they're writing about? And what evidence does the author give to support his point of view? Okay? The Titanic's tragic history. Just 4 days into its maiden voyage, the amazing Titanic met its tragic end. After several ice warnings were previously issued to the ship, the large vessel struck an iceberg on the night of April 14, 1912. Less than 3 hours later, the Titanic was at the bottom of the ocean. Over 2,000 people were aboard on its first voyage, which departed from England and traveled to the United States. This was the largest passenger ship of its time, and it is still one of the most famous ships in history. The massive ship was beautiful and talked about all over the world. However, the ship was not equipped with enough lifeboats in case disaster struck. And disaster did strike. The crew was not prepared. It took an hour after the Titanic struck the iceberg before any lifeboats were actually launched. Many boats were not filled to capacity before they released into the ocean. For example, one lifeboat left with only 28 people on board when it could have held 64 people. This was a senseless mistake that cost even more people their lives. From the time the ship hit the iceberg, the passengers had less than 3 hours to figure out how to survive. Many passengers in the lower decks were unable to make it to the top decks. They were panicked as the freezing water of the Atlantic Ocean entered the ship and began pulling it to the bottom of the ocean. If the Titanic had been more prepared with lifeboats and procedures for disaster, more lives would have been saved. About 60% of the passengers and crew on board the Titanic died on that tragic day out at sea. Okay? So we're going to think, okay, what is the author trying to get you to see? What does the author want? What's the author's main point of this story? Okay, and so the question 1 says, what is the author's viewpoint on the Titanic? What's the main point, okay? What is the author's viewpoint on this? And then text evidence. Question 2, how would the text be different if it had been told from a survivor's point of view rather than this author's point of view? So if a survivor were to have written this article, what do you think their point of view would have been as opposed to this author, okay? And that's a beyond the text. Those are the beyond the text questions. It's not in here, okay? So you're going to think about what might a survivor who survived this tragic historical event, what would a survivor say? Okay, this is just, you take what you've read and then you make your own guess on this, okay? Question 3, how do you feel about the Titanic? How does your viewpoint compare to the author's? Okay, how do you feel, you, on the Titanic? We read the Magic Treehouse Titanic. I know several of you have read the Titanic books in the class library. So, but based on this article and what you, a lot of you study Titanic, and I know you know that. So, what's your viewpoint compared to the author? Okay, enjoy. Happy Friday.